Welcome to Launch Today, the podcast focus on what it takes to get your new business to $1 million or more in annual revenue. From marketing tactics to incredible guest interviews, we focus on behind-the-scenes content from masters in their field. If you want to grow the revenue for your startup or your business, you don't want to miss today, because today's guest has generated over $5 billion, that's with a B, in real pipeline for B2B marketers through innovative live chat strategies. Terry Wilson is the CEO of Chatmetrics, where he's revolutionized lead generation by delivering over 300,000 qualified leads through staffed live chat services. With the background spanning BlueScope's $1 billion sales revenue operations and Harvard Business School training, Terry brings unique insights on scaling businesses in competitive markets. Terry, thanks for being on the
Thanks,
show.
Trevor. It's a pleasure to be here.
I always like to start by asking, why do you do what you do?
We're a people business. I guess that's the probably easy way to say it. And staff live chat is what happens, but always had this desire to help people achieve and be successful. I've done that through all of my career. I've been the fix-it man as my career progressed through corporate. That bring me into the businesses that weren't performing, and we'd turn those around. And I've carried that on into this business in that with the lead generation, particularly of conversion on websites, it has such a profound impact by increasing the pipeline and then revenue for our clients. And the reason we do what we do is we want it to be with people. Sure, AI is here now, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure, but the human aspect of business dealings and interactions, I think, will always be there in some way, shape or form. And we want to make sure that we generate 1 million jobs, quite frankly. That's our goal. Whether it's through our own business, obviously we're not going to hit that number ourselves, but with helping other businesses grow, it's quite achievable. We've seen some of our clients grow to considerable scale to the extent where they'll go beyond needing our requirements and be able to do it themselves. And it's a bittersweet moment for us. We've helped them with that success to get to that level. But the underlying reason we do what we do is it's a people thing. We have people in our business that we bring into the business that really haven't had an opportunity to develop any skills, particularly in the digital world. We bring them in, we pay them, we train them, we teach them skills, and then teach them how to commercialize those skills, and hopefully they stick around, which they have so far. But that's what we do. We're a people business, and we do what we do because we want to see people be successful. And I guess the underlying goal is 1 million jobs.
That's a big number. Crowd Tamers, my agency, hey, I'm wearing my merch today. We mentioned, 3 years ago now, one of my goals is to help 1,000 founders make $1 million a year in revenue. Same way. And they won't all be clients. They won't even mostly be clients. There's no way I'm going to have 1,000 clients in 5 years, but it is 7 years. But it is a goal to help teach people that go-to-market is repeatable and you don't have to wonder how to make your business successful. So I love that alignment. I love that we have this goal beyond just earn a living.
And our influence, both of us, goes well beyond our immediate employees or our immediate clients. The influence we have goes well beyond that, particularly when you're doing that type of thing. You, from a training perspective and sharing your knowledge, and us from a growth perspective, when one client employs one person, that's helping the economy to be in a much better position to flourish and grow for the others as well. So, yeah.
Definitely. When I mentioned previously, you delivered over $5 billion in real pipeline for B2B marketers. That's largely because people sitting on a website are maybe able to convert, and many websites just aren't trying hard enough. What made you decide Chatmetrics was the way to make websites make money in a way that they didn't previously do?
It's an interesting little story. My wife and I moved to Melbourne. I was offered a promotion with BlueScope that I was with at the time. My wife and I moved to Melbourne, and moving to Melbourne, she wanted to set up a business. She's got a skin and laser clinic. She needed a website, obviously. We're in the process of trying to find someone to build the website for her. One day I was waiting out the front of the hairdressing salon for her on the bench. She said she'd be out in 10 minutes. This guy came down and sat beside me. His wife had said 10 minutes as well. 40 minutes later, we're chatting. We've solved half the problems of the world and forged a bit of a relationship. And these two ladies walk out together. Our wives walk out arm in arm laughing. Apparently they've known each other for the last 3 months. We didn't know, and we just met each other on the park bench there. He built the website for my wife. After about 3 or 4 months, the website was generating 2 to 3 leads a month, appointments for her business. And then about 3 months in, this little box popped up. I'm talking 2012, and I thought it had been hacked or something. So this little box pop up. And I'm John there. Hey, who are you? What are you doing here? And it's, oh no, we're your customer service support team. We're going to help you get more clients. But okay. All of a sudden, the appointments went from 2 or 3 a week to 2 or 3 a day. Over the course of the next 6 months, that ramped up to 5 or 6 a day. This is where most of the appointments were coming through the website, through that little chat icon. At the 6 months mark, it disappeared. And the appointments went back to 2 or 3 a week. And my wife called me and said, what's going on? I said, I'll call the guy, find out what's happening. And long story short, he said, look, I just need to make some adjustments. It'll be back in a couple of days. When it came back, it went back to 5 or 6 appointments a day. And that moment for me was an aha moment of the impact that this is having on her business. Roll forward 2 years, that guy and I started to get to know each other a little bit better. I was at the time leaving my corporate career, and he had a chat with me and said, look, I think there might be something in this live chat thing as a business. I said, I think you're absolutely right. I went through my logics and we spoke about our plans and what we thought it could be. And lo and behold, August 2015 is when we kicked off Chatmetrics. So in this August it'll be nearly a decade.
Be a decade. Wow, congrats. That's a long time. In the SaaS world, very few companies make it to this landmark. So congrats for you.
It's interesting. We play in the SaaS world, but as a service, we're probably not really that much of a SaaS ourselves. And we're across a much broader swathe than just SaaS as well. While SaaS is a big component of our revenues, we're also very strong in education, finance, industrial, and agencies, as well as high-value services, so consultants and business coaches, those sorts of things.
So you operate round the clock, which seems easy, but can be challenging. And it's wild to me. Every SaaS product I use, they operate on the 8-hour day of wherever they are, which all of them have clients elsewhere too. That's why I mentioned before this call recording started, I have clients in Singapore, I have clients in Europe, I have clients in Australia. I end up as the founder because that's hashtag founder lifestyle, right? I take all these calls. 9:30 p.m., 5 in the morning, whatever, man, you do it. Why is it you think that most businesses do the 9 to 5 of wherever they're located and disregard the whole rest of the world for them?
Look, I think it's a resource. It's a resource thing, quite frankly. If we're talking about live chat it's very difficult to staff. Psychologically, when we're distracted from a task that we're doing, in this fallacy of multitasking is a fallacy. When you get distracted from a task that you're doing, it literally takes you 20 minutes to get back into the zone again when you get back to it. So if you think that there's an interruption for a chat, you go and do the chat because you've been pulled away. And when you get pulled away and absorbed into a chat, you're fully absorbed because you're in that conversation and need to be on point. When you go back to your task again, there's a big distraction. That and the fact that when you're operating in a time zone, the normal working day is the normal working day. You try and cover hours outside of that. Then there's a cost associated with that. Sometimes there's a resource associated with even being able to try and get the staff to be able to do those hours for you. So I think resourcing is probably the main reason. And the flip side, obviously, is we've seen this transition of live. Back in 2012, when I became aware of live chat wasn't that widely known. It started to get adopted, but I think people realized how difficult it was. And that's when, the birth of the chatbot. And I think the chatbots, quite frankly, have done more harm than good. They've done more damage to the reputation of live chat than benefit, because as hard as live chat is to staff and resource, chatbots are twice as hard to try and program to get a decent conversation on the other side of it. This thing that everybody jumped with, this will be easy. We don't need staff anymore. We'll just throw the chatbot in there. I can say in the 10 years that I've been doing this, and we've done a lot of research, like we've got research on 5,006 websites very specifically. And so it's even more than that. There's a handful of times, less probably than 5, that I can say I've had a very good chatbot experience that would make me feel very comfortable in dealing with this organization, that they value the clients, they value the website visitors that are coming enough to be able to, they've spent the time to get this thing right. It's been a good experience and I want to move forward. Other than that, it's been poor at best, shocking and extraordinarily frustrating at worst, which I did a post on LinkedIn early last week about an experience I had with G2's AI chat. It's another story.
There we go. So I have quite a few clients in the AI space. I have a little AI product of my own that does chatbot related things. And the chatbot sector is growing. I think I saw something like 35% year over year compared to, 35% more than traditional methods. That's the stat that I saw. So there's a big push over here because, as you mentioned, resourcing and staffing is hard. So people give it a try. But the other stat that people don't pay attention to is 70% of AI deployments fail because a myriad of reasons, but usually it comes down to you thought it would be easy, but it's not. So when someone's evaluating the likelihood of using something like a human resource versus an AI resource, the balance you make is AI is faster and cheaper. Are humans more likely to be successful than AI because they're more mutable? What do you find for clients? You've had a bunch. How many of them, when they roll out something like Chatmetrics, they go, oh, no, that's not for me, and walk away, versus how many go, oh, this made a big
It's about 5%. So our experience is there is about 5% of new clients that sign up with us. We know within the first 30 days, sometimes depending on the amount of traffic they've got, it's within the first week. Once we're engaging with the website visitors, you will know whether there's going to be a pickup or not. And it's about 5%. There is some increase generally, but it won't be as much as what they're expecting. And the reality is it'll be something like predominantly in the cybersecurity area, when you're selling to cybersecurity professionals, but they don't want to talk to anybody. They don't want to disclose anything. They want to click on any buttons. And as far as chatting with the live chat's concerned, they're not so much it. As far as the impact of AI, look, it's there. It's good. I guess the only way I can answer it is with an inbound lead that I had yesterday. And that was when I was chatting, she'd been advised by her current provider that within 2 months, they're going to be shutting the business. And it's an agency that's used it as a tack on to their website services. So that's not they don't specialize in that. It's been an add-on service, and they found it to be quite costly to operate because they didn't have the volume and scale of customers, et cetera, et cetera. And so they're closing down. Now, her comments to me were, I've searched for someone else that can put staff into our live chat, and everyone else is offering chat bots and AI, and that's not what I want. I want people in there. And so I think there's always going to be people that want that human component. Look, that's not to say that we're not ready for AI. Yes, we're doing lots of things in the background with AI and chatbots and all of that sort of stuff as well. And there'll be some new products that we'll be launching in the near future. But the service and the core of our business is we're a people business. And that's not going to change ever. We'll never be in a situation where we'll swap out our humans for AI. But there is an impact. There's no doubt about that. What I've found in the last 6 months is that it seems to be polarizing. In the past, when I've had conversations, it'd be, look, I don't know if it works, live chat works or live chat doesn't work, a bit of a grayness, a little bit of sitting on the fence. What I've noticed in the last 6 months when I speak with people is, no, not interested. I want AI. It's easy. That's what we're going to go. We want the new shiny thing. We're going to move forward. Or, no, we don't want AI. We want people in our chat. It's not like this. There's not the grayness. It seems to be this tsunami of AI has started to polarize, and there's almost two camps coming out. That obviously there's the middle camp that says, well, look, we'll just wait and see. But there's a level of polarization coming, I think, where they've had good experiences or bad experiences. They tend to be early adopters or not early adopters, and for whatever reason it is, that it's really getting to a point of being polarized.
Yeah, I think the unique differentiation, one of the things Chatmetrics has that makes you special compared to all these chatbots is, and actually you talked about this in LinkedIn recently, differentiation is the biggest challenge in SaaS sale. And for you, your differentiation is, yes, you've heard of, and for 5 years now, you've seen everything about these AI chatbots. We're not that. And there are other staffed solutions to be sure, but just by saying we are a staffed solution. We will always be a staffed solution. Pulls you out of the way. In between the other folks in staffed chatbot solution, though, what makes Chat Metrics different?
The quality of the service. We actually, in the last decade, one of the things that we've focused on is the quality of the service. And we've done that with two motivations. My first and my business partner, Pal, we both have an underlying motivation to deliver an extraordinarily high level of value. And so it's always aiming to be under-promising and over-delivering. And so internally, we have this motivation to focus on value. And then we spoke about how do you build a business that actually the entire business is focused on quality, because the only way you deliver value is by ensuring that there's a high level of quality. And so our entire offer, and I've seen some posts about this recently. I think Manny Medina's just started a new business with a new pricing model for SaaS, outcomes-based, really. Well, we've been outcomes priced business from the beginning. So we're a pay per lead, pay per revenue outcome or revenue opportunity outcome, and no locking contracts. And so when you've operated a decade in that environment where there's no locking contracts, you know you need to be on your game every single month in, month out, delivering for your clients. It drives you to use some pretty innovative ways to make sure that the quality levels are high in what you do. And that's how we're able to deliver the sort of results. Month one, 38% increase in pipeline for the white pages here in Australia. Those sort of results don't come when you're fumbling around in the dark or you've got people or an approach where, look, we'll be a messaging service. We just want to capture as many leads as we can. And sure, we're motivated to capture leads because that's what we get paid for. But the motivation to make sure their quality is that we won't have a customer the month after if we push anything through that doesn't meet their requirements perfectly. And so that's...
I did work with a lead gen service October of last year, and they got me, and they were pay per lead, and they got me, I think they estimated they do 12 leads in the first month. And I went, this is fine, I'll pay you this much per lead. And they got me 40, which, cool, except one, at pay per lead prices, that's way more than I wanted to be spending, and two, 0% conversion to paid. And so, yeah, they were a 1 month client.
Yeah.
A 1 month I provided them because I'm like, this is cool, but I'm into you for, I think it was maybe $4,000 or something. I think we're paying $100 per lead, and none of them were a good fit.
Yeah.
So thanks, goodbye. And I think that quality is really important. But now I have to ask, what are you doing to ensure this quality? Because that's really hard to get right.
Look, it starts even before the recruitment process for us in terms of the internal processes and systems we have. But the recruitment process is so critical to make sure that we're bringing people into the business that have the right attitude as a starting point. Skills and knowledge are important, but it's the attitude more than anything else because we train 15% of every shift our team is in training. So we train very heavily. But the recruitment process we developed over the first probably 2 or 3 years. We've refined it a couple of times since then, but not too much. We've found the magic sauce to get the right people in that first 2 or 3 year period. Their onboarding, training and assessment process, they've got a week, it's a paid week, but a week with us where we'll go through a very intensive training with just a few clients and see how they step up and whether they're ready for it. I think the important thing that we do is make sure that we set them up for success. We set our staff up for success. We give them everything that they need to be successful. As long as they bring the right attitude, we'll pack in the rest for them. Then once we've got kicking along and they're up and running with the staff, with the clients, we've got processes built in that ensure quality assurance. We've got quality assurance team that are reviewing all of the chats that we do to make sure there's compliance back with what the clients expect. We're humans, we still make mistakes, but we'll pick them up and know about it before our clients even know about it and have rectified it generally by the time they do. And if it's an issue that they need to know about, obviously we'll just let them know and say, hey, we did this. This is the reason why it happened. It won't happen again. This is the steps we've taken, et cetera, et cetera. So it's then, aside from the quality assurance, there's also a continuous improvement program where once we've got enough data, generally in about 90 days in with a new client, you've got a baseline in terms of what the results are. our continuous improvement team start to go through, review the chats, make sure that we're absolutely optimized and see what we can do to tweak engagement and so forth. When we say we're people, there's a lot of people involved in this business beyond just staff sitting in live chat to make sure that we get the outcomes that we do.
Gotcha. You've been running chat metrics for just shy of a decade now. If you could go back to 2015 and whisper something in wee young little Terry Wilson's ear back then, what would you want to say?
Build a software. Build a software.
Okay.
Yeah. Look, we've sat in probably 27 different live chat softwares over the years. Either there's been one main provider that we've used through that time, but there's probably been about 27 other live chat softwares that we've sat in. And the problem, aside from having an underlying core principle of keep it simple, complexity brings all of those other problems that come with it, aside from cost, but also risk to make mistakes and reducing quality.
Yeah.
The experience that we've had with all of these softwares is that they try and add more and more features and more functionality. They become more difficult to use. And quite frankly, we see the results decline. As the softwares become more complex, they become more cumbersome, they become slower. Our main software provider, who I won't mention, our main software provider is guilty of the same. However, we've API'd into them in such a way that we're able to move off and force away a lot of the features all of the features that we don't need, and we only use what we do need. It's been a real eye-opener for me, I guess, through that period. And my business partner and I had an aha moment about 2 years ago. I thought, it's madness. This is what they're doing in terms of trying to, you asked the question, what makes me different? They're trying to find that point of differentiation and expand on it by, we've got this new feature, we've got this new capability. Live chat's pretty simple stuff. It needs the functionality to be able to engage with a website visitor, track that conversation, get that information back into a CRM, book a meeting if that's the outcome you're looking for. In many cases, you can use existing forms on your website to book the meeting via the live chat, where you just fill it in through the chat yourself. You can get a little bit more complicated when it comes to tracking things like UTMs and finding out where your campaigns are, but there's ways around that as well. You can build individual landing pages for campaigns and so forth to manage that side of it. The complexity. Yep. So there's one particular software provider that's well known in the industry, the category creator. I'm not going to mention them, but I'm sure if you know anything about it, you'll know who they are, who every time we sat in their software, so in our businesses, we provide the service and the software. That's our standard offer. Often we'll have people approach us that have live chat software. They understand the value of having staff in there, but they haven't been able to resource it themselves. So they will use sit in out. We did that for a while with this particular software. And every time we did, there were problems in either routing the chats through to us, the chatbot was doing something wrong, the playbooks were set up incorrectly. One of the complaints from one of our clients was 18 months in, when they called us in, the implementation still wasn't complete and they weren't getting what they were promised in terms of the uplift of conversions on their website. So we're 18 months in. That's a long time to be paying for a contract and not getting the results. When they came close to the end of the contract, I'd suggested, before you renew, let's have a look and just drop our software in there and see if it makes a difference. The week before, we delivered 7 leads. And when I say leads, they're fully qualified, booked meetings with the sales team to our clients' requirements. The qualifications they have, whoever the clients, the prospects that meet their ICP, that's what we work to. So, and every client's different. But with this one, we delivered 7 meetings with their account executives on the week before. And that was the full 7 days. On the Friday afternoon, switched their chat off, switched our chat on. And for the next 7 days, we booked 56 meetings with their account executives in 1 week. That's how much money was being left on the table because the way they'd had their playbooks set up, their routing, identifying ICP. So one of the things that was happening with this particular software is they were supposedly identifying who's their ICP and who's not, and they weren't chatting with those that weren't identified as their ICP. It turns out 2 things were happening. One, some of the chats were getting routed into handoff to assets and lead magnets. And only some of the chats were coming through. And there was a whole heap of people that wanted to chat that weren't even getting to a chat at all because they weren't considered as part of their ICP. When we switched all that rubbish off and started having anonymous conversations with people, all of a sudden, all of the traffic that was coming to their website that they'd spent so much money from a marketing perspective in campaigns and SEO and their brand awareness strategies, it was finally starting to come to fruition. And needless to say, they didn't turn us off. They didn't go back to the other software after that. They had a month to run. They just let the contract run out for the month. That was probably at that point in time was the time that my business partner and I made the decision we would not sit in that software. If somebody came to us and they had that, we'd say, no, look, we've seen similar, we haven't seen to that extent. That was a ridiculous result, quite frankly. And I think part of the reason why they were so frustrated over such a long period of time, and the provider had potentially been trying to fix this problem, but building so many playbooks had just made it so complicated that it's throw it all out and just start from fresh is probably a better place to go. But that's probably the worst one we've seen.
You have been a serial founder and you've been successful at building things. What is the least glamorous aspect of founder life that nobody talks about, but people really should be prepared for when they embark on their own founder journey?
Doing the work.
That's a good one.
Doing the work. That's what you've got to do. You can sit back and dream about the money and the lifestyle and the exit, but there's a lot of work you've got to do to get there on the way through. And I think the hardest part is proof of concept, MVP, till you get to the extent where you can get your first paying customers. My advice to anybody is always, if you can't sell to a customer, why would you try and sell to an investor? Now, if you want to go and raise funds, if that's your path, it's not mine, it won't ever be mine, but if that's what you want to do, you really will get so much more and retain so much value of your business if you've already got paying customers. That there's a proven concept that what you're going to sell there's demand for and that people are prepared to pay for it. But I think that the hardest thing is actually doing the work, and the hardest component, I think, is the sales, selling the product. Sales and marketing side of the business is probably the hardest. Sure, it depends on your skill set and your experience in terms of people would look at our business and say, my God, how do you manage so many people? How do you get them to do what needs to be done? What about staff churn, et cetera, et cetera? I've been running geographically dispersed businesses most of my life, and everything from 3-person businesses to 1,000-person businesses. And so when you have that experience in the background and understand the processes, systems, what it takes to build a successful organization, then for me, that was the easier side. But when I say doing the work, if it was somebody else, then the difficult side will be going through all the trials and tribulations of the recruitment process. What other pieces do I need to put in the jigsaw puzzle here to make sure that, that people side of it is fixed? Yeah, I think that the hardest part is doing your work. And I think the real hard part is getting beyond your own network in terms of customers and into the real world of paying customers that you've been able to attract to the business.
That is totally fair. There is a point called the 3-year cliff where most B2B business founders have reached the end of their network.
Yep.
And then suddenly the business goes from, it happened to me. In 2022, I did 770K with my little agency. And in 2023, I did 180. That's not the way you want that line to go.
No, it's not.
Like, that was freaking brutal.
Yep.
And I was like, it's so easy to make money. Only idiots say business is hard. And sometimes when you speak, the fates listen. And then they make sure that your hubris is repaid in full.
It's an interesting thing. You talk about that 3-year window. Where they've expired their network, my window was probably 3 minutes. When you move from a 27-year career in the steel industry into technology industry, steel industry is all relationship, face-to-face, reps in cars, visiting customers, to an environment where you're not even talking to anybody in the steel industry anymore. It was starting from scratch for me, 100%. And so those first 2 years of cold calling and starting to grow the customer base look, it's not fair to say that. Probably in the very beginning, there were 2 clients that we got from relationship. Beyond that, it was all cold, brand new outreach, and no small feat. And quite frankly, probably the biggest challenge that I've ever had in my life was that first couple of years in getting us up to a point of revenue where we can see the business is sustainable and it'll grow on from there. But look, the first 3 months for my business partner, we staffed the chat. We were the staff. We sat in the chat. We ran 12-hour shifts each, 7 days a week, and that's what we're doing. And obviously it wasn't a chat every minute, because we only had a couple of customers at that point in time, but it was he and I. And when there was a notification that there was a chat ready to go, then we were on it, and we had to be on it for the full 12 hours that we designated for each other over that period. And we weren't going to recruit anyone until we'd proven that it was actually a viable business moving forward.
I remember when I was CMO at Unito, this is what, 6 years ago, 7 years ago now. I was also the head of customer success, and it was a brand new startup. I was their first non-developer hire, and I was the chat agent. And it's really hard, as you mentioned, right? You're working on something and you get bing, you got to answer it. And then you do it and you answer their question, and then you get back to work and you're like, how was it? I don't remember anything about the thing I was just doing. And so relatively quickly, we had to hire a CSM in and like actually have staff chat. But for Unito and then the company before that at Good Old Games, I was probably 12 hours any given day in chat whenever I had a few minutes, just dropping in, answering, moving the football along, because that's hashtag founder energy.
Yeah.
Right? You want to make sure that customers are getting what
it is. And look, the really interesting thing is that depending on what stage the business is at with their marketing or their outbound campaigns and who they're reaching out to, what their audience is, you could have anything from, trying to think of our best performance, probably you could have anywhere 10 chats in between each real revenue opportunity, up to 500 or 1,000 chats in between each revenue opportunity. Some of our larger clients, 300,000 visitors a month, which is a lot of chats. And we can be having 1,800 chats in between each lead that we book for them. We charge accordingly. And that's the whole part of the pricing, why everybody says, what's your price? It depends. It does depend. But what it depends on is the level of activity in between. I can give you a range, and then we can run a pilot and lock in a price from there. If the range works for you, then we'll be realistic with the level of activity that's required, and we'll move on from there. But yeah, it's the distraction and the effort that's required in staffing the chat. The founder energy, I haven't sat in there actually for a while now, but interesting, we're 100% remote. And so our team still log in to an office every day, even though we're remote. We have a 24/7 Zoom office running. And so they log in and get into the Zoom office every day, and it's somewhere that I can jump in every now and again and annoy them. And it gives them a chance still to feel like they're in an office. They don't care where they are. They can be sitting with their toes dangling in a lovely blue lake somewhere. I don't mind, as long as the work gets done and they're there for the shift. And look, whilst it's remote, it is very fixed in terms of the schedule that they have to work to. But we've got a coverage of that 24/7, and we've got resourcing levels that we need to meet. So there's not as much there's location flexibility, and they can move around the shifts, and they often move around the shifts or cover each other, that type of thing. But they have to be there for those 8 hours.
All right. So I've got 2 last questions to ask. Normally I have one, but on your LinkedIn bio, you specifically mention, ask me about my 16-hour slow cooked lamb shoulder. So I must, right? What is this? Tell me.
Look, I love cooking, and over the years I've started to experiment with a few things, and the lamb shoulder is one of those things that started for me as the normal roast that would be on for an hour and a half. And then I'd seen the idea of low and slow, so I started to drop the temperature back, extend the timing. That 16 hours is now out to a 24-hour cook, and is
this in an oven? Is this
in an oven, just in an oven. It's out to 24 hours with a very low temperature, so 60 degrees at 24 hours. So 60 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, of course, yeah. I'm not I'm just trying to remember what the food safe temp is for lamb.
60 degrees.
You want to be higher
It's 60 degrees. Yeah. So what we do is aim to get it there. It's like dry sous vide almost. It's wrapped in foil, obviously, and there's herbs and tomato and onion and all that sort of stuff in it as well. And it's almost like a Greek style by the time it's finished, but super delicious and super tender. Obviously falls away from the bone. You can get it to fall away from the bone a lot earlier than that. But anyway, if you get me started on that, it'll be a much longer than a 40-minute session this will be.
So you're saying that I need to come out to Australia, and then you need to make lamb shoulder, and then I need to make Boston butt.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's a plan.
I don't have any more. I used to have a big charcoal grill, and I would smoke. So that we two things. One is I do turkey before Thanksgiving, and it was a 12-hour cook. So I would start it at 3 in the morning to have it for 3 in the afternoon, and then Boston butt is about a 12, 14-hour cook as well, smoked. And when you've smoked for that long, like the first centimeter and a half of meat is just pink from all the
Beautiful.
smoke that's gotten shoved
Yeah.
into it, and that's good stuff.
Yeah, it is. It is. Look, barbecue, Australian barbecue. Everybody said you had to throw another shrimp on the barbie. That's not really my style of barbecue. Texas barbecue is much more my style. The low and slow and the ribs and the brisket. That's my style.
Awesome. As you might be able to tell from my background, I love a good book. This is also, some people ask, this is a real background. This is not like a fake one. So I love a good book. These are actually, this is every National Geographic from January 1949 to December 2024. And because I happen to like Nat Geos. But I also like business books. I like fiction books. And I love to ask all of my guests, what's a book or a podcast or some way to get knowledge in the head meat that you think a founder should consume this month to be better as a founder?
And there's a couple. So the first one I would suggest is, and it's a reasonably old one, Break All the Rules. First, Break All the Rules, it's called.
Yeah.
And you know that?
Yeah.
By Marcus Uckman, I think it is. Jim Collins, Good to Great, also very solid. The other one I would recommend, certainly for any people or founders that haven't had a lot of experience in managing people and managing staff, it's a nice little easy read, The 1 Minute Manager by Kenneth Blanchard.
Good, yeah.
1 Minute Manager, putting the 1 Minute Manager to work, that whole little series, Leadership in the 1 Minute Manager. Amazing books in terms of, I've had so much management training, it's not funny. When you read a little book that takes you now to read and you go, wow, this has just distilled the first 12 years of my management career and qualifications and education in a 60-minute read. I strongly recommend those. And look, as far as a bit of a mindset thing, Learned Optimism by Martin Seligman. That's,
Oh, I haven't read that.
that's a very good book. Not just for business owners, for anyone, and particularly parents. There's a whole section on the back end that talks about learned optimism for children. So they're a couple of excellent reads.
So I had a chat with Nick Huber on my podcast a couple of weeks ago now, and he mentioned that employees are like children, but you can't tell them that because they get mad about it. But this to say, How to Talk So Kids Will Listen is a parenting book.
Okay.
But it's also a great management book because what it focuses on is how do you make communication collaborative instead of instructive. And when you're working with a team, it's not useful to say, you did everything wrong, why are you so stupid? But it is useful to say, wow, that's not what we wanted to have happen, why? How do we fix it? And some of the stuff about like how do you turn everything into a game, probably not as applicable. You don't have to tell your employees, how many marshmallows could we eat if we were dreaming? It's a little too much. But focusing on positive comms, even when things are in conflict, is really important. And that book teaches a lot.
Oh, that's an excellent recommendation. Thanks. Look, difficult conversations, I think, are one of those things that can make or break a leadership role, and potentially for founders in the early stages, make or break a business. It's one of those things that I learned about very early on, that I think sometimes you can call it brutal truth, but I think it's the brutal truth with a big dose of empathy is really the way to describe it. But if you leave things unsaid or undiscovered or unquestioned, the behavior that you allow will be the behavior that continues. And if that's not delivering the outcomes and results that you need or that you want, then it's on you. It's not on them.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. If people want to find out more about you, Terry, or more about Chatmetrics, where do they go look?
Chatmetrics.com. They can chat with us, guess what, 24/7 on that website, surprisingly. Or hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. I've started to get a bit more active on LinkedIn now since November. You'll see some posts. I did a post actually this week about a bot that went crazy, these humanoid bots. You talk about AI. One of the big challenges with AI, I think, is that people are too quick to release it before they fully have it under control and understand it. So anyway, that was an interesting thing with that humanoid bot going
Destroy
crazy.
all humans. Destroy all humans. Yeah, indeed. All right. If you have not yet, and you're listening to this, subscribe to the channel. Be sure to like this video. We're putting on new content every week from great entrepreneurs and leaders like Terry here. Thank you so much for your time.
Trevor, it's
And we'll see you.
been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Take care, everybody. Bye.